Good morning. How is everybody today?
Great.
Excellent. Glad to hear that. I'd like to open just with reading the passage that we're going to be dealing with. Is that okay?
Sure.
All right. Luke 15, 4 through 7. Suppose one of you has 100 sheep and loses one of them. Doesn't he leave the 99 in open country and go after the lost sheep until he finds it? And when he finds it, he joyfully puts it on his shoulders and goes home. Then he calls his friends and neighbors together and says, "Rejoice with me, I have found my lost sheep." I tell you that in the same way, there will be more rejoicing in heaven over one sinner who repents than over 99 righteous persons who do not need to repent. I'd like you to take a moment, if you would, and put yourself in this parable as the shepherd. What does he think? How do you feel about your sheep? For one, they're your prized possession. They're invaluable to you. You love, care for, feed, protect, devote your life to these sheep. I mean, if a pack of wolves come against your sheep, you take yourself and put yourself between the sheep and the wolves. There's a reason why the shepherd has a staff and a rod. You would lay down your life for these sheep. In a practical sense, they're your livelihood. It's how you make your money, if you will. So one day, with your 100 sheep, you take a head count. All right, there's Ned and Fred and Cole and Lisa and Snigglefritz and Yehu and Jesse and... Oh no, where's Frank? I've lost Frank! And panic strikes your heart, and what begins to go through your mind? Well, what if Frank stumbles across a wolf? Or eats poisonous plant? Or falls off a cliff? Let's see if I can't find the blank button. Oh, over here. There it is. Hey, ta! And so there was the PowerPoint. Falls off a cliff. If you think, if I don't find this sheep, if I don't find Frank, Frank could freeze to death in the cold. You are panicked for your sheep. So what does the shepherd do? In the words of Jesus, and I quote, "Doesn't he leave the 99 in open country and go after the lost sheep until he finds it?" It reminds me of the parents who take the child to a theme park. And they're in this crowd. They look away for 1 second and look back, and little Johnny is gone. Fear grips their heart, right? And what do? They go off and find their child. There's a few things that really strike me about this particular parable. One is, what does the shepherd do with the 99? Well, he's not roaming through a forest with his sheep and just go, "Oh, Frank's gone," and then bolts and goes and finds Frank. It actually says that he leaves the 99 in open country. He leaves the 99. You would leave the 99 in a safe area, right? Because you still care about your 99, but you also care about your one. The one. I think there are two philosophies at play here. And they're described or really illustrated well in two movies. I find like these movies are classics to me. I love them. I love watching them. I own them both. The first one is Star Trek II: Wrath of Khan. The third one is Star Trek III: The Search for Spock. And everyone in here who loves Star Wars and hates Star Trek rolls their eyes. Oh, good grief, another Trekkie. Just what the world needs. And those of you who dislike sci-fi, roll your eyes, because that's exactly what you need. Another sci-fi, great. But I believe that these two really do illustrate well the two philosophies at play. And there's no sound.
Don't breathe. Just watch it go. The needs of the many outweigh
the needs of the few.
or the one.
So, in the second movie, we see the Starship Enterprise in this epic space battle. And there's phasers going off at each other, these two ships, and photon torpedoes hitting the other ships. And what Spock realizes is that the engine in the engine room is about to go kablooey, which is the end of everybody on the Starship Enterprise. And so he beats feet down into the engine room, and he sacrifices himself by locking himself in the engine room and fixing the problem, putting himself in a place where he's going to die. So Kirk runs up, and he's like, oh no, this is bad. And he has this conversation with Spock as Spock is getting ready to die. And Spock says, don't grieve for me. It's logical. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the one. And if you take that argument to its furthest place, in the mind of the shepherd, when he loses Frank, he could be like, and you could say, if this is your philosophy, well, poor Frank. But I got to take care of my sheep. These 99 are important to me, and I have to just care for them. And, well, I hope Frank's going to be okay, as Frank gets devoured by a wolf or falls off the edge of a cliff or whatever. Poor Frank. Now, the next clip I'd like to show you is not this one. It is this one.
My father says that you have been my friend. You came back for me. You would have done the same for me? Why would you do this?
Because the needs of the one outweigh the needs of the many.
So, the needs of the one outweigh the needs of the many. So in this Star Trek movie, Spock is reborn after he dies. And the crew of the Enterprise hear about it. And they hear that he's in trouble, and they whisk off, risking their lives and their careers for the one. The one. He says the needs of the one outweigh the needs of the many. And I believe that we're seeing this with the shepherd. The needs of the one outweigh the needs of the many. In Luke 14, previous to what we see in Luke 15 of this parable, Jesus is teaching a big number of people, a great number of people. Rednecks would say, a mess of them. Right? And so, Jesus is talking not only just to people, but the lowest of the low. Okay? He's talking to tax collectors and prostitutes. And the Pharisees, the idea of the day then is that all of these people are unclean. They're the bottom of the barrel. And so they can't understand. Why is a teacher, a Pharisee, perhaps Jesus was a Pharisee, he had a lot of similar belief systems of the Pharisee. Why is this guy teaching to unclean people? There's plenty of clean people he should be preaching to. And that's when Jesus tells the parable of the 100 sheep. And he says, look guys, here's the thing. And he speaks to them in language that they understand, right? All y'all have, let's say you guys have 100 sheep, and one of them gets away. What do? Do you hang out with the 99? Of course not. You go after the one, and you bring it back. And you bring it back joyfully. He's supposing that the lowest of the low and their needs are as important as the 99. Maybe we should consider that opinion. I mean, Philippians tells us to take on the very attitudes of Christ. Maybe. So let's look at the attitude of our Good Shepherd. Some key attributes. How about determination? It says that he goes after the one until he finds it. He doesn't look around for a couple hours and, well, poor Freddy. Guess he's host. And goes back to his 99. There's a dogged determination for the pursuit of the one. And then when he finds the one with his dogged determination, he doesn't pick up the sheep and go, how dare you run off? What's your problem? You're stupid. No. What he does is he's filled with joy. His attitude is that of joy. And he picks up the sheep and he places it on his shoulders. I get this sense that he's lovingly talking to the sheep and petting it. Oh, it's so good to see. I've missed you, Fred. Gosh, Frank, I just miss you so much. Thank you, sir. I'm so glad. And he takes it back to the 99 sheep and he puts it back with the flock and he gets his friends together and his neighbors together and his family. He's like, rejoice, I done found my sheep. He's excited. He's beside himself. This is God's attitude toward the lost. He's not abusing the lost. He's loving the lost. So what's this got to do with us? I think that's an important question. Some of us right here in this room may have been eating some good grass with the flock, shepherds close by. And you take one bite of grass at a time and then a step. And one bite of grass and then a step. And one bite of grass and then a step. And pretty soon you look up and you can't find your flock. You can't find your good shepherd. And you're like, how did I get here? What am I doing here? What's going on? Your intention wasn't to get lost. You were just eating good grass. And you lost your focus. And you look up and the shepherd's gone. And you're gone. You can't figure out where you're at. If this is you this morning, I want to tell you there's good news for you. There's good news for you because the shepherd, I'll tell you a personal story about me. I've been lost once under this scenario. And I was afraid. I was afraid that my good shepherd was angry at me. And that my good shepherd was going to beat me when he found me. Lost. Man, I messed up. I did this and this and this and this. And how could he ever take me back? And if that's your fear, rest assured that your good shepherd loves you. And he's doggedly determined and pursuing you. He's seeking after you because he wants you to come home. That's not to say that there's no discipline, because God is also a disciplinary. He's a father. He wants you to do right. But there's no shame there. There's love. He loves you. And so if right now this morning you're thinking, gosh, man, I looked up today and dang, he's not around. He's seeking you this morning right now. And all you got to do is stop running. Don't run away from him. He wants to find you. He is finding you now. In the Boy Scouts, when you got lost, they didn't tell you to go try and find your way. They said, stay put. Don't get yourself more lost. People were looking to find you. I'm pretty sure that the God of the universe, who knows all things, has a pretty good idea where you're at. So stop running. He'll find you. He'll pick you up and take you back to the flock. Maybe today you're in a good shape with your good shepherd. Life is great, you know. Great relationship with him, great relationship with your flock. But in this room, I know for sure that we have all been called by our good shepherd to be under shepherds. And I also believe of us that God is preparing a flock for us as he is preparing you. He's teaching you his voice, the good shepherd's voice. He's leading you and trying to develop you with some solid foundation so that you can bring along sheep, other sheep. So what will happen if and when you lose a sheep? And I'm fairly certain that as all sheep tend to wander, we will lose one or two in our lifetime. What's our attitude going to be? Is it going to be judgment and grace? or judgment or grace? Is it malice or kindness? Anger or joy? Will we seek after the one with the same determination as the good shepherd in this story? I'm going to tell you a story about two brothers. Is that okay? Two brothers grew up in a volatile house. And there was much angst in the house. And pretty soon the parents got a divorce. The younger brother went with the mother. The older brother went with the father. And so they lived in the same town, but they were very much estranged. Not a whole lot of contact. And the younger brother grew up with this foundation of who Christ was and is. He grew up with an understanding, and so when he got lost, he had solid people around him to bring him back to the fold. And he learned and developed good faith-based habits. And his goals were set on the things that Christ values. In the same time, the older brother didn't grow up so blessed in that way. See, the father wasn't a believer. And so he grew up without the foundation and the understanding. And so he frequented church at times, but mostly that was to get away from his home life. And so when asked the question about God, he said simply, I don't believe in God. And he had multiple opportunities. And then he flew away. He left the city. The relationship with his younger brother was further estranged. And they lost contact for some while. So the younger brother set out on a path that he felt God had called him on, and he was moving in that direction. It was beautiful and it was good. There was trouble along the way, but God would continue to be with him. Suddenly, from his perspective, suddenly he got a phone call from his the older brother. And the older brother said, hey, listen, I just want you to come hang out with me. Come be with me for a little while. I'll pay your way, just come. And the younger brother said, yes, absolutely. And so they developed their relationship. And along the way, after some time, the older brother said, look, I'm starting a business here. And I would really like it if you would come work for me, because I value our relationship. And this would be important to me. So the younger brother now has a choice. You see, he's on a path and he's moving forward. And he feels like he has a sense of calling and a direction that he ought to go. But there's a choice. Does he continue on the path, which he feels like, yeah, God's moving us this way? Or does he say, I think the one is important? And does he move and leave what he knows to something he doesn't know for the one? What would you do? What would I do? I think that there's many of us here who maybe are the one and have wandered. I think that this parable is very much about Gentiles being united with Israel, but I also think that as the 91 was actually a part of, or the one was actually a part of the 99, maybe this is a story of a person, a guy. We're all men here. It's the story of a guy who wandered away. And God's actively pursuing him. That might be you today. And if it is, I'd like you to just take a second and stop running and say, Lord, I'm yours. And watch how quickly you'll be scooped up in your Savior's arms. If you have a good relationship, if you're good to go with Christ, maybe turn good to go. But maybe right now the Holy Spirit is pushing upon your heart in this very moment to say, there's one. There's one that I need you to doggedly pursue with love and joy and passion and share Christ with them and take your goals and maybe set them aside for a few minutes so you can go spend time with Him. I want everybody, if you would, just for a moment to close your eyes. Just think of the one. Lord God, I lift us all up to you, Lord, and I pray that you would call to mind the one, that you would give us the determination to seek after the one, that you would fill our hearts with love and joy and compassion for that one. And I pray that, God, you would make it so we couldn't help but follow after the one. And I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you, guys.